Good morning, beloveds. I reached down to scratch Foster behind his neck and he went, "Oh, that's fantastic." So, it was just funny. I'm running late because we had a fantastic day in the park. I got pictures of, obviously, the blue jays because they will literally follow us around the park. Lots of squirrels because there are lots of squirrels in the park. But I also caught a cardinal and 2 woodpeckers. We were trying to toss a peanut to a squirrel. A blue jay came out of nowhere, which I didn't catch because I wasn't expecting the blue jay, flew off, and then all of a sudden, behind the blue jay, one of the woodpeckers came and landed on the tree and then sat there and waited because they won't take the peanuts off the ground. They want to catch them in the air, or at least knock them out of the air. So it was, so Tom tossed peanuts far enough up in the air that they could knock them out of the air. They're weird, but they're downy-headed woodpeckers is what I understand. They don't have a crest. They just have a flat head or round head, and the top of the head is red, and then the body is black and white striped, spotted, kind of odd. But I think I got some really good pictures, so we'll see. All right, it is May 21st. Our title is When There's Nowhere Else to Go, which means I need to edit the title because I didn't get it quite right, which is okay. When there's nowhere else to go. Commit thy works unto the Lord, and thy thoughts shall be established. And that is Proverbs 16:3. And then the Science of Mind quote is, this conscious commingling, commingling of our thoughts with spirit is essential to the well-being of every part of us. So that is the Science of Mind 152. Oops. Have you noticed that many of us exhaust every resource, every avenue before we turn to God in prayer? We run about in every direction, expend all our energies, complain and cry, and then finally we try affirmative prayer. By then, we are often at our wits' ends and simply let go of our concerns out of desperation. Interestingly enough, something beneficial usually happens then. Perhaps because we are just too exhausted or distracted to resist divine action. I would like to think that the foregoing scenario no longer applies to me, but I suspect that, at least at times, it does. I, too, sometimes thrash around in my own misgivings before I turn things over to God, only to have a much better solution come about than I ever imagined. As thoughtful human beings, we can decide that at the outset of every venture to release to God all sense of control, and we can expect a perfect outcome every time. We can allow ourselves to be guided peacefully and lovingly from the start, navigating every step of the way under divine direction, all without breathless false starts and draining anxiety. Imagine how peacefully effective we could be. God creates all that is, and I daily use divine wisdom in all that I think, say, and do. My first activity every day is to entrust my decisions and goals to the infinite provider for resolution. I plan, dream, envision, and then release all to God. I go about my days calmly and peacefully, knowing that all my decisions are correct. And that's MS, Margaret Stortz. Okay. When there's nowhere else to go. So there's 2 things about this. The first being, I may change my mind. Let me see here. When we have exhausted all possibilities and finally turned it over to God, we're willing to release it. And she says in there, releasing control. I had, for a long time, my boss at my mortgage paying job would ask me, Lisa, have you got it under control? And my answer was always, no, John, control is an illusion. But I'm managing. And finally, he'll occasionally still ask the question, and then he'll laugh to himself and go, nope, control is an illusion. I think I've just finally worn him down. And that's one of the things that gets us into trouble. Really, honestly, there's very little we can control. Mostly what we have control over is our own response, our own reaction, our own decisions. Beyond that, control really is an illusion. And so when we hit that point of when we realize that there's nothing that we can do, and we finally let go of the illusion of control, it does, as she says in here, opens up the avenue for divine action. But the other thing is that one of the points of spiritual practice, especially when you do it early in the day, is to put you in conscious connection with the divine. And then it gives you that idea of, okay, well, whatever is happening, let me go to God first. And all the way through practitioner training, all the way through ministerial training, I think it was especially important in practitioner training, that one of the drum beats, as I like to say, is go to God first, go to God first, go to God first. Because when people come to you as a practitioner, they're not coming to you for you. They're coming to you because you can consciously connect with God, and you can hold that space for them until they can do it for themselves. They don't come to you for answers. You know, they come to you for that connection for God. Ooh, let me tell you a secret about it. Practitioners, we don't have the answers. We don't. You have all the answers you want already inside of you. But sometimes what you need to do is stop running around trying to do everything, get still and listen. And that's what practitioners do, is they provide that space where you can settle down, and then you can consciously connect with God, because they are consciously connected with God. They literally hold that space for you to do that. And then and frequently they'll also help you ask the questions that you need to get to the answers that you already have. It's not our job as practitioners to have the answers for you. It's our jobs to hold the space for you to find your own answers. So, and I think that's what she's talking about. It's like, why do we leave God last? Why do we try everything else first? Why don't we go to God first? And when we go to God first, it doesn't mean that we don't have work to do. It doesn't mean that we have other avenues to explore. It's not that we don't have things to do. But when we go to God first, then we allow God to shine lights on what might be a better choice than we might have tried first otherwise, if that makes sense. And if it doesn't, we'll try again. Okay, so because that's the title, When There's Nowhere Else to Go. Well, there's never a time that there's nowhere else to go. There's always somewhere to go, and that somewhere is always going to be spirit. The question is, where in the process are you going to go? And Margaret is suggesting, go to God first, because then you won't have to try every last avenue. You don't have to expend all of your resources, because God will show you the right paths much sooner in the experience than if you wait until the last, until you got nothing else. So, commit thy works unto the Lord, and thy thoughts shall be established. Proverbs 6:13. Start with God. Start with God, and God will give you faster feedback, because God can't do anything until you are willing to allow it to be done through you. So you make the space for that divine action. I think that's what she says in here. All right. So this conscious commingling of our thoughts with spirit is essential to the well-being of every part of us. And when one of the practitioners now was in practitioner school, one of the requirements is every month or every quarter, you go and have a practice session with a different practitioner. So you get to see all these different kinds of ways that the practitioners work. And so one of the practitioners, when she was in school, picked me. And when she came in, what I told her, what I reminded her of is, there's nothing too small. You know, it doesn't, even when you go to if everything is going right in your life, you can still go to God and say, hey, things are going really well now, and I just wanted to say thank you. And I'd like them to keep going well. And the other thing is there's nothing too small to take to God. You know, we don't have to just go to God with the big things. We can go to God with the little things. Because if we do that, maybe then the little things don't turn into big things. So, have you noticed that many of us exhaust every resource, every avenue before we turn to God in prayer? We're all human. We all have that experience. Sorry. The cat rolled and almost fell off the box. It was funny. We run about in every direction, expend all of our energies, complain, cry, and then, finally, we try affirmative prayer. By then, we are often at our wits' ends and simply let go of our concerns out of desperation. Okay? We let go of the illusion of control. Interestingly enough, something beneficial usually happens then, perhaps because we are just too exhausted or distracted to resist divine action. It's like, by that time, we're like, all right, I will just take anything that comes this way. And that's when God can go, oh, all right, you're listening now. And I totally resonate with this little middle paragraph. I would like to think that the foregoing scenario no longer applies to me, but I suspect that, at least at times, it does. And I'm not going to beat myself up about it. Sometimes you just get caught up in the action, and then you're halfway through it and you go, wait, there's a better way to do this. let me back up a few steps and try that. You know, you do the best you can until you know better, and when you know better, you do better. And so the goal is to just catch yourself earlier in the process and go, wait a minute, hang on, let me try this first. Let me listen first. And she's starting to worry me because I don't know what she's doing. All right. The cat, not God. As thoughtful human... Oh, wait. I, too, sometimes thrash around in my own misgivings before I turn things over to God, only to have a much better solution come about than I ever imagined. And that's the power of spirit, the power of the infinite, is because we have limited ourselves in this mortal form, we have limited actions. And so occasionally what we need to do is remember that God has infinite possibilities, infinite actions, and we just need to get out of our own way. All right. As thoughtful human beings, we can decide at the outset of every venture to release to God all sense of control, because control is an illusion. We have like I said, we have very little that we actually control. We can allow ourselves to be guided peacefully and lovingly from the start, which is, again, like I said, the point of spiritual practice, is to make that conscious connection. That's one of the reasons why I do these early in the day. It may not be the first thing I do. You know, I go and do my meditation by walking, and then I come and do this, and then I think I notice that I have a better day. As thoughtful human beings, we can decide at the outset of every venture to release to God all sense of control. We can expect a perfect outcome every time. We can expect a perfect outcome every time. Now, just bear in mind that perfect means whole. It doesn't mean flawless. So it doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to get a flawless outcome every time, but we will get a whole outcome every time. In the end, it will be okay. We can allow ourselves to be guided peacefully, lovingly from the start, navigating every step of the way under divine direction, which is why a lot of the times within centers and churches and things like that, or just in spiritual practices, we start with a vision. We start with visioning. We start with treatment. We start with prayer. It's like, all right, we want to create a new work, so let's start with prayer. And open ourselves up to being guided throughout this entire process by the divine patterns. So we can do all of that under divine direction, all without breathless false starts and draining anxiety. Imagine how peacefully and effective we could be, or how peacefully effective we could be without all the, gnashing of teeth and rending of clothing. It's possible. All right. And she does this beautiful treatment down here. God creates all that is, and I daily use divine wisdom in all that I think, say, and do. My first activity every day is to entrust my decision and goals to the infinite provider for resolution. I plan, dream, envision, and then release all to God. I go about my days calmly and peacefully, knowing that all my decisions are correct. And so that's Margaret's Stortz. I keep trying to put an L in her name, and I'm not sure why, but it's Stortz. So if we start our day with God, then it opens our day up to so much more amazingness. And the beautiful thing is there's a whole bunch of different kinds of spiritual practices. And so you can do a quick, short one just to consciously connect with God, and then do much longer ones later, wherever it fits best into your schedule. And like I said, that's one of the reasons why I do these in the morning. So it gives me something to think about. So I'm going to say that the mission today, should we choose to accept it, is to start our day with God. As she says down in that beautiful treatment, I plan, dream, envision, and then release all to God. When you open your eyes, plan, dream, envision, and then just release it all to God. And trust that as you move through your day, the guidance that you seek will appear as you need it. So that's the mission. And then I was talking about spiritual practices, and I do have a friend who does watch these, who does have a absolute ritual with tea. And so that's the first thing he does in the morning. And so he does, and he does it the way that I suggest. If you're going to do something loving for yourself, do something kind for yourself, do something compassionate for yourself, fully engage all 5 of your senses into whatever it is you're doing in the moment. Savor that cup of tea. Feel the warmth in your hands. Smell it. Taste it. Feel the warmth as it slides down your throat. Take the time rather than just knocking it back. So, all right. So that loving, kind, compassionate thing. And I suggest it because 1, it is a spiritual practice. 2, you deserve your own love, your own kindness, your own compassion. 3, why not practice on yourself? If you practice that on yourself, you create this amazing habit, and you create it as a default setting. So it's your first response no matter what happens around you. We all have those days that our first response is not loving and kind and compassionate. But if we work on it, then it becomes more likely. And if we start our day with God, that's even better. All right, beloveds. I am going to move into the process of my day because I have a couple of things to do because, oh my God, my ordination is less than a week away. But as always, I encourage you to do something to engage your mind and your body. I encourage you to drink plenty of water, which I definitely need some more of. I encourage you to go get that early morning light, especially since down here it's going to rain for the next 4 or 5 days. We need the rain though. So I'm not grumpy about that at all. And as always, open the windows of your soul. Allow the breath of heaven to remind you, you live in heaven right here, right now. And by starting your day with God, that's how you figure it out. That's how you allow that breath of heaven in. Start with that conscious connection to God. And then also, look for the good and praise it. Look for the good and praise it. And there's all kinds of good from the big to the small. And sometimes, most of the time, it's the small that means so much more to us. All right, beloveds. It's Saturday. I'm going to go have a catter day. I do have work to do, though. So we'll have to figure this cuddling thing out. Cat cuddling. They're part of the reason why I don't get a whole lot done. Because the minute I sit down, I got a cat in my lap. And then you feel guilty getting up. Or I don't know. I do. All right, but have a great day, an amazing day, a wondrous day, a fantastic day, an enchanting day, a magical day, a catter day, a good day. And if that's too much pressure, simply have a day because you are enough just as you are. You are a beloved child of God. in whom God is pleased and well represented. So start your day with God. Just talk to God while you're doing other things, you know. So I'll walk around my house some mornings just having that conversation. I know it looks a little one-sided and it looks a little crazy, but the people around me are used to it. So, and the cats like it. So, okay. Catch us on the social medias. We are on, we are Creative Life Spiritual Center, Creative Life Spark. I am the running Rev Ryan. I did mention the ordination. If you want to watch that, you can email info@creativelife.org for the Zoom link. It will be on Zoom. It is not going to be streamed live. I will most likely, no, I will. I'm going to make it available on my YouTube channel, but it will be private. So then you'll have to email me for a link so that you can watch it if you want to watch it later. So there we are. I need to go get a drink of water. So take care of yourself. Know that Reverend David will be on around 5 p.m. with you. I'll be back with you at 9 a.m. and then we'll have an amazing service for you. We still got 2 weeks left with Ursula Gesterfeld, so it'll be an amazing time. All right, great. Know that you're loved, and I will see you next time.